Welcome to our first E TAG. For the first E TAG, we are going to talk about how to encourage reflective practices inside the class. The second E TAG will be how to evaluate a vocabulary lesson. And the third one will be how to practice giving feedback. So our concern today is going to be how to encourage reflective practice. And by the end of the session, we will have to realize what reflective practices is and the importance of doing reflection on own performance, our own performance inside the class. The second objective is to become aware of a group of techniques that encourage reflective practices. So we are going to deal about some techniques to make a reflective practice inside the class. And the third one is to discuss in details two reflective practices techniques. يبقى احنا النهارده هنتعلم two different techniques for practicing reflection inside our class or inside or about our job as teachers. So encouraging reflective practices, look at this diagram. So here is a professional practice. This is my work inside the class. Then I have to reflect on my work. After that, I'm going to make a professional development. So I have to reflect on my professional practice to make a professional development, to know what the weaknesses, points, and treat them, and what are the strengths, points, and I consolidate them. Next, what is reflective practice? What is reflective practice? So let's see. I will provide you with 3 definitions. And you are going to decide which definition do you mostly disagree with. Which one of those definitions you are not agreeing on. So these are the 3 definitions and you have to read them. You have 3 minutes to read the 3 definitions and to write on the chat box which letter of the definitions A, B, or C that you don't agree with. Okay?
I disagree with number B.
Okay, Ms. Asma, thank you. So if you wanted to write on the chat box, it's okay. If you
Okay.
I'm agreeing with number C.
So, Ms. Hiba Jamal.
على فكرة هو البطانة معمولة لو تحت حاجة شفافة أنا بستخدم.
Ms. Dina. Dina, you raised your hand. Are you going to share? Okay. Okay, so let's see. The first one about the reflection inside the class is a systematic reviewing process for all the teachers, which allows you to make links from the experience to the next, from one experience to the next experience, making sure your students make maximum progress. This is the first definition. Second one is encourages you to work alone and ultimately finding your weaknesses as a teacher. Is a basic part of teaching and learning. It encourages you to work with others as you can share best practices and draw on others for support. Makes sure all the students learn more effectively as learning can be tailored to them or given to them or delivered to them. Okay, so I have here one opinion that tells me that I don't agree with the second one, and it's okay, me too. I don't agree with the second one because reflection is not working alone. It's not working alone. You're not working alone inside the class. You are not working alone. You are working with your colleagues. Your colleagues is going to give you their feedback about your work, and your colleagues is going to reflect on your work, and you are going to reflect on their own work. So this is number B or letter B. We can't agree with letter B, and that's right. Okay, let's look at this diagram. What is a reflective practice, and what is the process that we are going to deal with? Which comes first of these four parts? The teach, assess, consider, and the practice. It's called the reflective cycle. So what comes first? If you are willing to answer, just unmute yourself.
Teach.
I'm sorry. Teach comes first. That's right. So we have to involve in the teaching process itself at the first time or the first stage. Then we have to assess ourselves and what we have done inside the class to make sure or to consider what is going well and what wants some rehearse or some modifications. Then we are going to practice. Practice on what? We are going to practice on the techniques that we have decided that it will work. Then we have to reteach the same skill again. So you started with teaching, then assessing, then you considered your weak points and you have worked on them. You practice these weak points and you have worked on them. Then you have to reteach the same skill again to make sure that you went well. Okay. So this is the process of reflection. It's a cycle in which you teach, and after teaching, you have to assess the effect that your teaching has had on learning. And then you have to consider new ways of teaching, which affect the quality of learning. Then you have to try these ideas in practice. Try the ideas that you have worked on practice or in practice. Then you have to repeat the same process. It means that you have to reteach the same skill again. Now, what are the benefits of reflective practices? You are going to find, I'm going to show you 3 different perspectives of teachers that they have practice in reflective practice inside their classes, and you have to decide which one suits you the most. Okay, this is the first teacher, which is called Paula. Which of these teachers has experienced the benefits of doing reflection practice that could be similar to yours? So read them. You have 1 minute. So to sum up, this is Paula's opinion. She said, I can target it to the outcome that is the desired outcome for the practice group and the particular subject I am doing. So she related the reflective practice with what? With the learning outcomes, the desired learning outcomes that she wants. Okay, let's move to another teacher, which is Carlos. Just concentrate on the red lines. So Carlos says, those strategies like finding help in other professionals, having a chat reading sometimes, and rethink again your practice and becoming, as you said, more confident with what are you doing well. So Carlos sees that reflection practices inside the class helps him to be more confident about what is he doing inside the class next time. So, and the last teacher, which is Monica. Monica says, become more collaborative with the staff and also teaching the children how to be independent learners as well. So we have 3 points. The first one was she related the reflection with the learning outcomes. And the second one says that reflection makes him confident with his work inside the class. And the last one says that it became more collaborative work with the staff and the children more independent in the learning process. So which one of these points of view that you go with? Which one of these views that you go with?
Monica.
Yes. Monica. So yes, that's right. And there is no correct answer here, but you have to say that I go with Monica, and I can say I go with so and so. So the 3 are correct. The 3 are correct. And they are all benefits of the reflection process inside the class, because the reflection makes you more aware of the learning outcomes and makes you feel confident inside the class for the next time, and makes you have a collaborative view with your teachers or with your colleagues inside your school that you work in, and it gives the students some independency in learning the process. So by reflecting on your teaching acts, you can identify any barriers to learning that your students have, because if I did, or if I conduct any lesson inside the class, for instance, I'm going to teach listening skills for a sub-skill like listen for details. Okay, I'm going to give the students a listening task, and I'm going to ask them some questions related to the detailed text that they have listened to. So after finishing, I have to reflect on my work and the activities that I have given the students. Then I'm going to identify any barriers to learning. What prevents the learning process with my students? What makes the learning process not fruitful? So I have to work on my own practice inside the class. And this is the first one. One benefit of the reflection is to identify any barrier to the learning process. Create confident students. If you taught the students any skill and you find that the students didn't take the idea, as a teacher, you made a reflection process and you retaught the students the same skill. Get the idea in the next time, and you created a confident student. As a result of reflecting, the students are challenged as you use the new materials or the new methods in your class. Okay, one other benefit of reflection is create experiment to your teaching to gain maximum success. So if I make a reflection on one lesson of my lessons that I have teach the students, I have to find other ways to reteach it. It's not logic to reteach the same skill with the same activities that it doesn't work. So you have to rethink of another approach, rethink of another method, and reteach the skill. So you created an experiment with new ideas and new approaches. Another benefit is to create an environment of partnership working as you question and adapt both your own practice and that of your students and other colleagues. Let's suppose that you have to get your colleagues. So you are going to ask your colleagues some questions and you are going to collect the answers for these questions. So you build a partnership working. You make a partnership working with your colleagues. So you assist each other. You tell him some points and he told you some other points of views. So you have worked collaboratively and you created an environment of partnership in the working space. Okay, let's move to the next point. Reflective practice in practice. So who will be involved in this process? Who will be involved in the process of reflection? I want to listen to you. What do you think? Who will be involved in the process of reflection? Me as a teacher only or what?
The teacher and the student.
The teacher and the students. That's right. What
Teachers
else?
and students.
So, I didn't...
Teachers and students.
Who's going to talk?
Teachers and students.
Teachers and the students. Ms. Zainab. Thank you.
Teacher and students.
Questions?
Yes.
Yes, go on. Go on, Ms. Heba.
Teacher and students.
Hmm?
Teacher and students. Teacher and students.
Yes, the teacher and the students. Okay, what about the colleagues? What about the other teachers?
Cooperate with us.
So, yes, you are right. So, I think that all of the teachers, the students, and the colleagues or the peer teachers, they are all involved in the process of reflection. Like, as a teacher and students and colleagues. If you make a reflection, you have to collect some information from the students to make sure that they have understood what you have taught and to reflect on their ideas and to rethink of your teaching process inside the class. Also, you can depend on your colleagues to ask them some questions related to a certain point, and you have to reconsider or reteach the same point after making some kind of a chat or conversation with your colleagues. So, about you, how can I make a reflection on my own? Through self-questioning, ask myself some questions about my work inside the class, through learning journals, writing the journals for my, like a diary, it's a kind of diary, okay? In the journals you have to write, what are the practices that you have done inside the class to reflect on them again. Another way, lesson evaluations, some questions that you have put to evaluate your lesson. And portfolios. You know the portfolios? It's a kind of a vault or something like an envelope that you collect your work inside the class for a year or 2 years or a long period of time. It's called portfolios. So our concern today is going to be lesson evaluations. Okay, about your students, how can you reflect with your students? Through student dialogues, to speak with the students, and through student feedback. Some of the students will tell you, yes, mister, I didn't understand this point. Would you reteach it again? And for your colleagues, you can let them observe you inside the class while doing a lesson, or shared planning, to plan the lesson together. Sit with some of your colleagues and start to write the preparation of the lesson that you are going to teach next time. And today you are going to concentrate on observations. Okay, the first part, about you. Evaluation requires you to think back on the lesson, assessing its strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities for development. So, if you have to evaluate your work, you don't have to say the weaknesses points only. No, you have to find the strengths points that you have to consolidate them for future, and to work on the weaknesses points also and to find new opportunities for development. So I'm going to give you some kind of dual sentences, 2 sentences at a time, and you have to find out which one is correct or a fact and which one is not a fact. Which of these questions would you ask yourself first after which of these questions would you ask yourself first after finishing your lesson in order to evaluate it? I'm going to give you 4 questions. 4, 5, 6. Read these 6 questions to find out which question you are going to ask yourself if you want to evaluate your lesson. The answers will vary by instance. The answers will vary. So think of a lesson that you have taught your students,
What I have
and
done
you wanted to evaluate the lesson. So again, Miss Madonna?
I think all of them.
what would I do
What is the first question that you are going to ask yourself if you want to evaluate your lesson? So there is no correct answer, by the way. There is no correct answer. They are all correct, but you have to decide which one that you are going to ask yourself.
I think
the last one.
The last one, Miss Heba?
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you.
I think number 2.
Number 2, you're right. Okay, all your supposes are right. All your supposes are right. Every single question of these questions may work as a first question, but it depends on your own performance inside the class. So if I taught the students some related skills like reading and writing skills, and I gave the students some activities that the students didn't like, so I am going to ask myself, how engaged and active were the students? And what could I have done differently? What activities that I have to do differently next time? That all the question may work, but you have to make sure that you ask yourself the right question. Okay, let's see the next slide. A question that evaluates the aim of the lesson. If you wanted to ask yourself a question that evaluates the aim of the lesson, you have to ask yourself this question. How much learning took place and how do I know? This is to evaluate the aim of the lesson. If I wanted to evaluate the aims, I'm going to ask myself this question. How much learning took place? How do I know? And if I want to ask myself a question related to evaluate the meeting or the learning needs in the lesson. If I wanted to make sure that I have met the learner's needs, I can ask myself, how engaged and active were the students inside the class? And if I wanted to ask a question that evaluates the strengths of the lesson, I can ask myself, what went well in this lesson and why? If I asked myself a question to evaluate my weaknesses inside the lesson, I can ask, what problems did I experience and why? What are the problems that I face inside the lesson and why? A question related to better alternatives, بدائل أخرى, that could have better achieved the aim of the lesson. So you have to ask yourself, what could I have done differently inside the lesson? And a question that evaluates an action plan I will take in the future to achieve better teaching and learning, I can ask myself, what did I learn from this experience that will help me in the future lessons? So, in observation, your colleagues can help you in observation, like when someone assesses your practice through watching it in action. If you invited some of your colleagues to enter your class and to make some notes about your practices inside the class, this is called observation. So the observer is going to sit at the back of the class. He will not interact with your students or with you inside the lesson. No, he is going only to observe and take notes. That's it. So the aim of class observations, what is the aim of class observation? We are going to complete with these phrases. So you have to think of which one of these phrases goes first, and which next, and which third and fourth. So I'll give you 1 minute to read and think.
This should be
So Mrs. Zainab, you raised your hand. I unmuted you. You can speak.
2, 3, 4, 1.
Now you can read them.
Okay, I will.
The aim is to
First one, teaching practice, then teaching and learning practice, support the enhancement, and reach reflection and discussion.
yes. Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Zainab. And there is Miss Dua. Ms. Dua, you can unmute yourself.
I'll say the same thing that Ms. Zainab said.
Exactly the same. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, let's see. The first one, support the enhancement. The aim is to support the enhancement of our teaching and learning practices within the atmosphere of rich reflection and discussion on teaching practices and process. So this is the correct order. Thank you. So we are going to read the 2 sentences and we are going to decide which one is fact and which one is false conception. The first 2 is about reflection, or sorry, about observation. Observation is a one-way engagement or is a collaborative effort.
number 2.
Number 2. Number 1.
Number 2. Number 2 is a fact. It's a collaborative work. So observation is not a one-way engagement, because if I get inside your class and I took some notes about your work inside the class, and after the class have finished, I didn't tell you anything about that I have taken, the notes that I have taken. So it will be a one-way engagement. I will not get any benefits, but it's a collaborative effort, as you work with your colleague and you get benefit from each other. Okay, another 2 sentences. It's a kind of judgment on our teaching performance, or it focuses on mutual learning and development, which is a misconception and which
Number
is a fact.
Number
Yes,
2.
yes, very good. Number 2 is a fact. So it's a mutual learning and development. Through observation, you have to develop yourself. It's not a judgment on the teaching performance. And the last couple sentences, it's about agreeing on the specific aim and the focuses, or it would be better if it doesn't have a specific aim and the focus. Yes, number 1 is the fact. Yes. Very good. Okay. Now we are going to read 5 sentences, and we are going to rearrange these sentences. We have to rearrange these sentences in order as a kind of observation. If I wanted to observe a lesson for my colleague, what should I do first? You have a minute to read the 5 sentences, then we are going to discuss it first.
Number 4.
Number 1.
Okay, read them and sing. If you are ready, tell me that you
أول
are
حاجة number
ready.
4.
Did you rearrange them all?
Arrange a short meeting
4,
to discuss
3,
points
1, 5.
related.
Okay, you can give me the numbers.
4, 3, 2, 1, 5.
Sorry again, because the sound is not clear.
4, 3, 2, 1, 5.
4, 3, 2, 1, and 5. Okay. Any other points of view?
4, 3, 1, 5, 2. 4, 3, 1, 2, 5.
Some of you get very close to the correct answer. Okay, let's see. Which comes first?
4.
I have to arrange a short meeting to discuss points related to the class of concern. Yeah, the areas of concern is the issues related to the planning itself. This is the first. To arrange a meeting. So I wanted to observe my colleague. Is it right to enter his class an arrangement? I think no. You have at first to arrange a short meeting to discuss points related to class, areas of concern, issues related to planning. This is at first. Next, work with your colleague to identify the aim of the observation. What is the aim of the observations that I'm going to observe you? Why I am going to observe you? Number 3, decide on the focus and the tools to be used. I can observe you through so and so. I can take some notes. I can videotape the lesson. I can write some notes and so on. The next would be carry out the peer observation of the lesson on the agreed date and time. On the agreed date and the time that you have agreed with your colleague on. And the last one, to give a reflection on the learning points from the lesson observed. This is the last one. So again, they are, the first one will be arrange a meeting, work to identify the aim, decide the focus and the tools that you are going to use, carry out the observation, and reflect on the learning process itself. Okay, an example of an observation tool. This is a kind of an observation tool that you may use if you want to observe your colleague. You are going to write your the teacher's name and the observer, the date of the observation, and the class that you are going to observe. Okay, you are going to state what are the stages of the lesson, the stages of the planning lesson, and what are the strengths that the teacher have made inside the class, and what are the points to be considered, to rethink of them. So this is a model of an example of an observation tool that you may use as an observer to your colleague. 6. What can I do after the observation? How can I give the feedback? Which feedback could be most effective in encouraging the teacher to think about their own practice? Let's suppose that. خلينا كده يعني نفكر شوية. If I entered the class, one class of my colleagues, and I observed him, how could I give him my feedback about his own performance inside the class? Can I tell him, oh, you did so and so wrong. You have to rethink of them. Is it a suitable way? I think no. So these are 3 scenarios. There is a problem with your board work. It's very confusing for the students. Here is a way to organize it. If I did this with my colleague, he will not listen to any of my instructions. He will not work with me again because I give him a judgment on his work. I didn't assess him. This is a wrong way to give you feedback. Number 2, let's take a look at your board work. How could you improve it? I think that this is more suitable than the previous one. And the third is, tell me what you think about the lesson and what would you change next time? So you ask him, what do you think about your own lesson? You want him to rethink and reflect on the lesson. And what would you change next time? إيه الحاجة اللي هتغيرها المرة الجاية? And I think number 2 and number 3 are more suitable than number 1. Number 1 is very bad. It will not work. Okay, there's a technique which is called the sandwich technique or the sandwich feedback. You give at first a positive thing, next a negative one, and finally another positive one. So you give your colleague 3 points to consider, 2 positive and 1 negative in between. So tell me 3 things you like that about today's lesson. So when I'm going to give my feedback to my colleague, I'm going to tell him, you did so and so very well today. Okay, number 2, how could you have improved that, solve that problem? I'm going to tell him, we can improve through so and so, and you will open a discussion. You will open a discussion with your colleague. And the last one, so let's sum up what we can build on from this lesson, given the conclusion, a conclusion of what we have done in the observation. And this is called the sandwich technique. Okay, this task is going to be for the next time, inshallah. Think about a vocabulary lesson or a lesson where you had to teach some vocabulary, and think of the evaluation questions. What questions are you going to ask as an evaluation, and which have been discussed today, and evaluate your lesson according to these questions, according to the questions that we have done today. So thank you for joining us today. Joining me today, it's my pleasure, and I'm really appreciate you being today. And if you have any questions, just ask me. Feel free to ask me any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mohammed. Thank you, Mr. Mohammed.
Thank you, Dr. Mohammed.
So if you decided that you have a question and you are not willing to say it right now, you can just write it on the WhatsApp group, and I'm going to discuss it with you, and I'm going to give you the presentation on WhatsApp, inshallah, after finishing the session directly.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions?
Thank you.
No, thank
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining me today, and I appreciate you. Thank you. And goodbye.
Goodbye.